Chapter 18. A Bombshell. Jack sat in the big recliner in the living room. It was where his dad normally sat, but he being the only person in the house, guessed this didn't matter. He was agitated, twirling Amaralis's ring on his finger, then noting in astonishment that it wasn't there. He felt it there, in his gentle twirling, but he couldn't see it. A good safety precaution, he thought. Mum and Dad would go ape if they saw my new wedding ring, it being the only finger that the ring fit perfectly. The clock on the mantelpiece had stopped at 2:27 years ago. He wondered what time it was. He wondered too how long his recent bounce into Quam had taken. There was no way to calibrate the differences between Quam and his own world. A few days in Quam could mean just a few hours sleep. He opened the curtains and blinds in the living room. The day had started badly, and the weather conformed, dull, windy and damp. His inner sprite was depleted, hardly anything showing on the orbital scale. He decided to make something to help pass the time. Cheese on toast, a cup of milk, followed by a banana. He returned to the lounge, sat down, got up, walked to the window, sat back down, and then decided to go to his room and complete his daily chores. He realised that he was in a state of flux. Too scared to think about his sister, petrified about a phone call, his mind drawing vision of his sister's pale, haunted face. She's going to be okay, he reassured himself, half believing it, and then feeling guilty about the doubt. Dirty washing sorted, bed made, and a quick hoover around. He almost fell down the stairs, the flex of the cleaner momentarily snaring his right foot. He managed to stall his fall by dropping the cleaner and grasping onto the wall on either side of the stairs, hands screeching like car brakes against the newly glossed wood. He was okay. The cleaner, on the other hand, did not fare so well. It was a Dyson Cyclone, and by all accounts the cyclone had gone, never to return, a gaping hole in the side, splintered plastic across the foot of the stairs. Oh, now I'm in trouble, he thought. Mum will kill me. After thinking this through, he drew a breath, somewhat staggered. No, she won't. How can I think of something so trivial? In Jack's life, the sky was falling, the very fabric of normality eroding away. His mind returned to Louise, a vision of the tiny freckles that adorned her face, his small button nose and her bangs in constant flick mode away from her eyes. A solitary tear ran down his face, shocking Jack. Although 13 years old, Jack had always been more mature than his age would suggest. The tear had a partner, then all their friends came out to play, his gentle sobs racking his frame. It took several minutes for his composure to return. He felt much better after the onslaught of grief, as if a weight had lifted off his small shoulders. Back to the kitchen, he made a coffee, half filling a cup with milk first in order for it to resemble latte. He took 3 Hobnob biscuits, perfect dunking partners for his caffeine hit. He turned the radio on and was surprised to see that it was now 8:29 a.m, the end of Coldplay's Yellow fading out. The DJ announced the time and the station and introduced Radio 2 News. As per usual, they announced the headline stories first, then follow up with a brief commentary. In Parliament, the government were coming under scrutiny over the lack of policy. A farming union rep was to comment on the industry lack of support, another major company gone into liquidation, and the rising problem of sleep paralysis. The statistics showed a big increase this year of patients failing to wake up and struggling with a comatose state, some never waking up. Jack was shocked to hear this on the radio. Amaralis's prediction of more and more casualties in Adam's realm coming to fruition. A car pulled up outside, the familiar fan belt shriek of the old 80s Ford Escort heralding the return of his family. Jack rushed to the front door and threw it open with so much force it returned on him. He held his arm up to stop colliding with it. Jack could see his mum and dad in the front seats of the vehicle, but they were stationary, just sitting there. He waited for a few seconds, then a few more. He waved, but they were both looking down and didn't see him. Eventually his dad looked up and spied him there. His father's hand reached across to his mum. They rushed into an embrace. Jack could see his mother was crying, their bodies shaking quietly, her head bobbing to the side and back. Eventually they left the vehicle. Jack's mum looked depleted, her eyes red and puffy. Jack's dad, normally stoic by nature, looked bereft and lost, soulless. They ushered Jack inside, refusing to talk outside. They congregate in the lounge, his mum sitting in the centre of the sofa, drawing her legs up, hugging them gently, rocking, looking forlorn and lost. Jack sat opposite on a leather buffet. His dad drew a large breath and sighed. Jack, we have some bad news. Louise is gone. She never woke up. The doctor said that her little heart just gave up. Jack screamed, "No!" Jack's mum joined him, screaming uncontrollably. Dad grabbed them both, hugging and patting their backs, trying to calm them, to no avail. No amount of consolation could assuage the family. It would never be the same again. Never again would the peal of childish laughter resonate at breakfast. Never again would the princess of the bathroom hold court for an hour. Never again would Jack race out of the house to stop his sister from taking his place on the school bus. These heartfelt thoughts crashed through Jack's mind. Over the next few days, a hushed silence like a cloud of gloom hovered over the house and followed the remaining family members into whichever room they found themselves. They shadowed each other, not looking for contact because that kind of contact would make them fall apart again. Mum was a ghost, locked in her bedroom, refusing to eat or even speak to anyone. Jack's grandmother finally gave up and left the house, failing to get an audience with her child. Dad busied himself with the awful task of funeral arrangements. The sombre, stony-faced undertaker floated in and out, arrangements made through necessity, forms for release, authority and final visits to Louise made before the undertaker could complete his tasks. The austere room held a solitary bed, lights were dimmed and a strange fragrance permeated the air. Under the pristine blanket, Louise, face expressionless, eyes closed, a serene angel caught devoid of life, like a carbon copy of the real Louise, Jack thought. He spent 10 minutes in quiet solitude, numb to the bone, desolate and heartbroken. Eventually, through bated breath and sobs, he managed to say out loud, "Louise, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. If I hadn't gone off to Quam seeking adventures, all of this nonsense wouldn't have happened. I want you back, please, God, if there is a God. I want my sister back." Back into uncontrollable sobbing. He got up, left the room. Walking down the corridor towards the waiting car, the parents have already spent their moments alone with Louise. A doctor passing by bowed his head as if to gain his attention. Jack glanced up as he passed, then turned, wondering why a doctor would bob his head. Had he met this man before? Just before the doctor turned into a side ward, Jack caught a glimpse of his face. The red eyes of hatred, the snarl of a monster. Jack screamed and ran after the doctor, murder on his mind.